Hello, I'm Guion, and today we're going to be fitting TTS sound into one of these. A rebuilt Merchant Navy by Hornby, part of the Royal Wessex set. Let's get started. So here is the locomotive. This is number 35026. Lamport and Holt line, Merchant Navy. This is the rebuilt Merchant Navy. Now, I've already made a start on taking this apart. Just lift the body off the chassis. Ooh, there we go. So here's the chassis, and you may have already noticed that it's got a 6-pin harness there for a decoder. So that's going to make our lives a lot easier. We don't have to do any wiring to fit our decoder in this. It'll be a straight plug and play, although there may be some other issues. We'll soon find out. Yeah, I think we'll with that then we'll have a look at our decoder, which is right here. So this is just a standard Hornby TTS sound decoder for a rebuilt Merchant Navy class, and there we have it. Blister packaging. Let's just peel this open. So we've got, there's our decoder wrapped up in a wire. There we go. And we've got a harness for the speaker, some screws to mount that. So yeah, it's your bog standard TTS sound decoder. So how they do these sound decoders basically is it's a standard board that all the locomotives share, but then on the back here you may notice that there's actually a daughter board that's been soldered on top of it, and each one is numbered. So this one's 31, so that's there, 31. Model 31 as such, which would represent this particular loco class, and on there is all of your audio and potentially I would assume also some settings as well to configure the decoder, but the rest of it is more just the power supplies, the bridge rectification, the optocouplers to take the signal from the track to interpret those DCC signals and decode them. So first thing to note is the speaker. Now, I'm pretty certain, like on a tender loco, this would be no problem at all. We just fit this in the tender. With the more recent models of this loco, they have a place for a speaker like that to go straight in, not a problem at all. But for us, because the decoder is in the loco, well, there's not going to be a lot of space to fit a sound decoder in here, is there? Especially when most of it's been taken up by the motor. And I already anticipated this, so I actually went ahead and I went on eBay and I picked up one of these. So this is a speaker from an iPhone. Specifically, this one I think is the iPhone 5C, but the iPhone SE and the iPhone 5, or even the iPhone 5S, they should all have similar speakers and similar size, and it's got two contacts in the back here, so it would be a simple case of disconnecting these wires and soldering them onto this, and that'll allow us to have a much smaller speaker, and hopefully we won't lose too much performance from that, but that will fit in here quite comfortably along with the decoder. So before I start removing the sound decoder speaker and replacing it with the iPhone speaker, I thought we'd give it a quick test with this breakout board from ESU, and I'm controlling it using a DCC++ controller unit here that I've built, and then using JRMI on my laptop as the control software. Now if I just set this off with the sounds, hopefully we get some live. There we go. Use function 2 for the whistle. It's pretty loud there, I think, and if we set it off a bit. So that sounds quite good. There is a bit of a what you might hear is a bit of a clicking noise, and that's actually just my motor. I don't know if this might be something wrong with my motor, but if we turn the sound off and run it again, you may have heard then a bit of crackling there. But that's not the speaker, so the speaker is definitely doing its job well there. So I think now would be I need to cut the original speaker off and solder on this new iPhone speaker. So I'll be back in a second and we'll do that. So now I've got my soldering stuff out. We can make a start on that. What I've got here is some solder paste. It's really useful, makes my life a lot easier when it comes to this kind of thing. Rather than using solder, because you need that extra hand here, you just paste the solder where you need it to be, hit it with some heat, and there you go. And it's got flux embedded as well, so that makes things a lot easier. So just get my iron here, and all we're going to do to start with is remove the wires from our speaker. There we go, there's one, and there's the other. So that's that out of the way. Now we get our iPhone speaker, and all I'm going to do is apply a small bit of solder paste on each end, like so. I'll then get the iron back, introduce the wire, and just hit it. And there's one. And there's the other. It is quite simply, well, that simple. So what we'll do now is we'll plug it back into the DCC system and we'll give that another test. So now I've plugged it up, let's start the sounds back up once again. So we are having sound, that's good, that means the installation was successful. Doesn't sound bad at all. So I'm hearing a tiny bit of crackling from it. I think I might just turn it down a bit. I mean, it's only natural with something that much smaller than this that you expect it to perform the same would be kind of unfair. But I'm pretty pleased with the sound that I'm getting from that. Well, I think with that we'll now look at fitting it into the loco. So there we have it, we've got the body back on. It's only a test fit, I'll come back through later. probably with some Kapton tape or something to insulate the decoder so it doesn't short out in the long run, but it should be okay for the moment. What I'll do now is put it on its back, and I'm going to reintroduce the command station to it. And then once I got all that wired up, we'll give it another test run with it in the body. So all I've done here now is add a bit of heat shrink. I haven't actually shrunk it at all. I don't want to restrict it at all, any kind of airflow to cool the components. So I've left it as is. It's got enough friction to just hold itself in place there. It's only to prevent it from making contact with the contacts and the shielding on the speaker, so that should be sufficient. So now we'll just pop that back in to the loco. a little bit of fiddling. Maybe if I try the speaker first on its own. Go. Now that's in there nice and snug. Now I can just put the body back on with the screws and we're done here. While I was putting the loco back together, I noticed that the wires connecting the tender pickup to the loco had a little bit of damage. So what I've done is added a bit of heat shrink over the wires and just glued that in place to stop the wires from coming out and snagging, because I assume that's probably why it broke in the first place, was it was rubbing against the body and the chassis, and that's probably what stripped the wire. So now it's protected, it's shielded, it won't cause any shorts either against the chassis or against another wire, so hopefully that keeps together quite nicely. And there we have it. There's a fully sound-fitted TTS sound, that is, fitted Merchant Navy, rebuilt Merchant Navy by Hornby. That's now ready to go. I'll be doing some more tests at the Swansea Raven Modelers Group test track tonight, and I'll be sure to record a couple of clips at the end for you all to see. But I'm very pleased with how straightforward it is to set up this loco with TTS sound, despite the fact that we had to remove the original speaker and replace it with an iPhone speaker. But I think with the later models, the sound decoder would reside in the tender, not in the loco, so that won't be so much of a problem. Most of the cases it is literally just removing the tender body from the chassis and then dropping the decoder in and then putting the tender body back on. It's a really simple, straightforward process. But I think there's a small advantage with having it in the loco, and that is that the sounds are being produced by the loco rather than in the tender, so you get a bit more localized sound to a more appropriate source, which is your engine rather than your tender. But that's a very small point, to be honest, and I think many people would be quite happy with sound coming from their tender as they would from their loco. But I'm very pleased. It's a very cheap setup. It is only TTS sound. It's not as good as those you get from U-Choose or ESU sound decoders like Lock Sound, but it is a very nice way of getting into DCC sound in model railways for a very low price. It's a very good budget, kind of entry-level sound to sound systems. So definitely pleased with Hornby's efforts there to make sound-fitted locos, or just fitting sound to locos, more accessible to those on a slightly smaller budget than others. I mean, I own a couple now, TTS sound locos as well as sound-fitted locos, and as far as I'm concerned, the differences aren't too great. They aren't, and I still get enjoyment from a TTS loco than I do with a fully sound-fitted loco. I think one of the reasons you get a better experience with more expensive systems is the speaker. So, I mean, even with a TTS loco, if you pair it with a nice speaker, you can get a good result from it compared to a expensive decoder fitted with a very poor speaker. But yes, very nice, straightforward installation. Pleased with it. I'm sure the member I've sorted this out for is going to be pleased with it as well. So
there's nothing else to say, but thank you very much for watching. Please take the time to like, comment and subscribe. And now I'll leave you with some clips of the engine running on our test track at Swansea Railway Modelers Group. Goodbye for now.